Hey guys, Crewman here, and this is the pinnacle of consumer graphic technology, the ASUS RTX 5090 Astral. Now, I know they just released their 5090 Matrix, but that has like 1,000 units made and it costs $4,000. So I don't think you'll see that in the hands of any normal person like me. Hell, the only reason I have this is because I was able to pick one up at Best Buy open box for $2,300. Okay, so what I'm getting at is one of the great things about the Astral is that it has this wonderful software and sensor suite that the 12 volt high power is getting too much power, irregular power, or not enough power. It has a red blinking light. And I was getting that when I was testing this on my 7800X 3D test bench, which you'll see right here. So, what I'm getting at is we're very fortunate that ASUS put that sensor suite on this 5090. Now, other 5090s don't have that. So you may not know when your 5090 is drawing too much or irregular power. And considering that this thing is pulling about 570-ish watts, give or take, and the max power that a 12 volt high power cable can get is 600 watts, and I know there's a new name for it, I'm just calling it what it is, basically. You play it a little too close for comfort, which is why buying a high quality power supply like the ones shown here is incredibly important. Shout out to Be Quiet for shooting me these over. What I'm getting at is if you are going to spend $3,300 on this, or if you're going to buy like if you're lucky enough to get a Founders or a cheaper model, anywhere between $2,100 to $2,700, $2,800 for an RTX 5090, then you need to buy a good power supply. And the crazy thing is, even with a good power supply, there are nuances you have to consider. For example, these two, right? Now, I just have these two out to prove the point. I actually use a Dark Power 1300 water, I'll have a link down below, on my main gaming PC, which is actually going to power this Astral. But what I want to talk about is, there are multiple things you need to consider. First off, you want to get a high-end power supply, like a Be Quiet. Now I know titanium and platinum doesn't matter as much. Can't hurt to get a very well-built power supply. If you're going to spend as much as you are on the 5090, you may as well spend what you need to get the appropriate power supply. And even if your power supply worked just fine on a 4090, as my 9800X 3D test bench did, that does not mean it will work as well on a 5090. A 5090 uses a lot more power than a 4090 does. You need to consider buying a good power supply, and then even with the good power supplies, you see Be Quiet's most premium model, the Dark Power 13. And then you see another high-end power supply, but not their top tier one, the Straight Power 12. If you were to get the 850 watt Dark Power 13, you would not have enough power for your computer. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is model matters, but also the wattage is important. Now, this Straight Power 13 is a great power supply for an RTX 5090, and I know a few people who use it. If you're looking to save a little bit of money versus buying something like the Dark Power 13, 1600 watt, or 1300 watt. Now, if we're being 100% honest, I would not use anything less than a 1200 watt power supply on an RTX 5090. Now, I know that's kind of crazy because, you've probably seen people get away with 1,000 watters, and it's definitely higher than spec, but what you have to realize is when a GPU starts up, and this was kind of pronounced in Ampere when the 3090 came out, because that was like the first really big power guzzler. There's something called a transient spike. These things have shown that they could pull like a transient spike of well over 800 watts. Now, transient spike is like a millisecond, so like you won't even register it. But a good power supply, like say you were to use this 850 watt, what would happen is it would just shut off and reset when you hit that transient spike. And you really don't want to play with that. You want a power supply that can avoid that transient spike. So like say a 1500 watter, where if you get like an 800 to 900 transient spike, you have enough power to be okay. Now, if you're going to say, Crewman, well, what does that do to the GPU? Well, the reason you see these GPUs melt is because when they have more power than they're rated for long periods of time, they get too hot, and that's when things get messy. But like a quick 1 second transient spike isn't going to heat this up enough to cause damage. In fact, it's normal. So what I'm trying to say is, and I'll put links to these power supplies down below, They will be affiliate links. You can use my link or not. I'm just trying to get the information out there because it's the holiday season. People will be buying 5090s, and frankly, depending on when you're watching this, because I'm filming this on November 20th, 2025, there could be a 5090 shortage coming up soon, which will make these things even harder to get. So what I'm getting at is you want to make sure you have a good power supply, and you want to make sure you overspec your power supply. So if you're going to get the dark power, I would recommend getting the 1300 watt. If you're going to get the dark power 14 or the straight power 12 or 13, get at least a 1200 watt. I mean, you can't go wrong with more power. Like 1500 watts isn't bad, especially if you have like a power hungry system like mine, where you have like a 9950X3D with a bunch of fans and you have drives and all of that. The more power you're putting out, the more power you're going to need. If you have like an Intel power guzzler, like a 13 or 14900K, you're definitely going to probably want something like the 1500 watt. That's it for this one. Not too much here, just a PSA. Thanks again to Be Quiet for sending these out. What I am going to probably attempt to do is my 5800X3D test bench and my 9800X3D test bench. I'm going to look to improve the power on them and probably replace them with high-end power supplies like this. Honestly, you really can't go wrong with Be Quiet power supplies. They're well made, well engineered, and they are great. That's it for this one. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and do the right thing. If you've already decided you're going to spend money on a ginormous piece like this, spend a little more and overspec your power supply. I wish more people would talk about this. Thank you for watching. Peace out.